I've had this palette for a couple of days now. Finally getting a chance to look at it. I can't wait to do some swatch comparisons for you in 100% natural light. I am by a huge glass door. It's sunny today. It's not super bright inside, but it's a good amount of nice natural light peeking through the door. Really sleek packaging. I love this sort of cool tone purple, brown outer cover with like this sort of like shaded ombre effect in the center. The words Icy Nude, like there, you could feel the texture. Huda Beauty also, very nice sleek packaging, and inside we have an interesting color story. Some of these shades are reminding me of pretty grunge, so I'm a little scared. But let's get started. Let's compare this to my entire Huda Beauty collection with regards to just the big palettes. I have the Empowered palette. A lot of cool tones in here. Pretty Grunge palette, one of my favorites. A lot of cool tones in here too. Rose Quartz palette. Half of this is cool tones, so I'm feeling a little scared. The Naughty palette. There's some similarities from here too. Two old ones. Here is the New Nude. And then here is Mercury Retrograde. Let's just get started. Let's start the swatch party. I'm gonna start with this very first shade. It looks really white, but I see a reflection of like purple in here. And it's reminding me of the Rose Quartz palette. Oh wow. Okay, I see a lot of pinky purple here. Let's see how that compares to this Self-Love shade from Rose Quartz and Moon Magic. Here is Self-Love. Okay, that's different. And here is Moon Magic. I'm going to take Moon Magic a little bit more. Yeah, that looks very similar to Moon Magic. Oh my god. I'm not seeing a difference between this shade and Moon Magic. All right, next shade is called High Life. This looks like a pretty typical cool tone shade. I feel like I'm gonna find something in Pretty Grunge or Rose Quartz for sure. Yeah, this looks like a pretty typical cool tone shade. All right, from the Pretty Grunge, I'm gonna compare it to this shade called Freedom. What is Freedom? I mean, it does look similar, it just looks lighter. From Rose Quartz, we have this shade here called Radiate. I would say the one from Pretty Grunge looks a lot more similar, whereas the Rose Quartz one is a little bit more mauve-y. The Pretty Grunge one looks very similar. Next shade is called Platinum. Oh, that's a really beautiful gray silver shade. Ooh. That is so pretty. I don't think I have anything like that in any of the palettes. No silver shade in the Empowered palette. Nothing in the Pretty Grunge either. I mean, this one looks a little silvery, but it's still a lot warmer, I would say. So that makes me happy. Let's try the next one. This looks like a pretty typical shade. This one is called Unapologetic. That one right next to it. How about Confident from Empowered? That looks darker and much more cooler tone. I have Pretty Grunge. I don't think so. How about this one? Fearless is also like a lot more cooler tone and darker. The other thing I can think of is the Naughty palette. I don't know. Yeah, that's also cool tone. I mean, And this one, called Naughty from the Naughty palette, is too warm. But here's a warm one from the Naughty palette. Here's the cool tone one from Naughty palette. And this is from one of the other palettes. Like, I guess the closest one here is the warmer one from the Naughty palette. Next one we have is called Faux Fur. That's a pretty typical cool tone. Purple leaning brown. Yeah. I mean, that one looks just like this one from Naughty. Wait, was this from Naughty? From the Naughty palette, let's take this spicy shade. Maybe a little bit more purple in the Naughty one, but pretty close. Okay, let's take Confident from Empowered. Let's take Fearless from Pretty Grunge. Ooh. Yeah, Fearless from Pretty Grunge looks pretty similar. I swatched it again so you could see them side by side. Here's a new one and here's Fearless from Pretty Grunge. So, I mean, this shade is nothing special. There's a lot of shades that look like it. The last shade from the first row before I clean up my arm. This looks like a pretty typical shade too. Just like a nice champagne shade. Take Stand Up from Pretty Grunge. Bold Moves from Empowered. Tantric from the Naughty palette. I mean, all three look very different. So let's see if one of them matches. All right, so here's Tantric from Naughty. Here's the one from Empowered. And here's the one from Pretty Grunge, which I would say it's like the most. The Tantric one is a little too warm. The one from Empowered is a little more golden, but the one from Pretty Grunge looks a lot similar. Stand Up, this one right here. Let me just put it right on top so it's easier to compare. It is very similar, but Pretty Grunge is a little bit more pink. All right, so here's another look at all the shades. The first shade is called Iced Out, and it is pretty much a duplicate of the shade Moon Magic from Rose Quartz. The second shade is called High Life, and I forgot which palette it was from, but that one's pretty similar too. And then the third shade, which is this gray silver shade called Platinum, that's pretty unique. And then the fourth shade called Unapologetic. I did find one similar one, but it's close, but not the same. But the fourth one called Faux Fur, I found a lot of similarities across a lot of palette. And then the last one called Gold Standards. I found something similar, but not exactly the same. Now there is, I guess I could look into New Nude. Maybe this shade. Crave might be a better match because the one here is a little bit more pink, whereas this is a little bit more peach, and Crave is peachy, but Crave is so smooth and nice, whereas this new formula feels really light. Mercury Retrograde? I don't know, maybe the shade Galaxy? No, Galaxy is too pink. And then we have this shade Frazzle. That seems a little too warm, yeah. Nothing there. I mean, out of the first row, the only really unique one is that silver one, but the rest of them are pretty replicable from other palettes. Let's see how the second row goes. In the second row, I mean, the first shade is a white shade, so I don't have anything like that in my collection, so that's clearly a unique shade. Nice swatch, pretty nice and soft. Ooh, that's pretty, but we probably have something like this already. Very crumbly, but very pretty. Ooh. Looking at the new nude. What about this shade here? Oh yeah. Maybe a little bit more warmer in the new nude. This one is still different. It looked like there would be a lot of similarities from the new nude palette, but I am not actually seeing it in here. Maybe Mercury Retrograde, Supernova. Yeah, Supernova is a little too pink, so nothing there. This is the Empowered palette. I don't see much in here either. I'm gonna check this shade here called Visionary, because it's like a mix. Similar, but it's a lot darker and the shine is not as reflective. Yeah, that looks very similar. Slightly different, but very similar. Here is a swatch again right next to the other one, so it's an easier comparison. Here's that. And now you can like look at it side by side, and I would say this one's a match. All right, next shade is called Poised. Looks like a very gray shade. All right, let's compare it to this gray from the Empowered palette. I don't really see much gray anywhere else. Yeah, so I would say this gray is a pretty unique gray. I don't really see anything like that anywhere else. The gray shades are unique to this palette. I haven't seen them from Huda before. Let's check out this one called She Rich. Why does this look like another one from the same palette? She Rich looks pretty like purple and cool tone. Where's Pretty Grunge? Maybe this one? Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good match. And the last one is sort of very basic cream shade. From Pretty Grunge. Even though this looks actually a little bit more peachy. Yeah, this one looks a lot more peachy. There's a cream shade from the Naughty palette. Ooh, yeah, that's dark. Mercury Retrograde. That's pinky. So even that's different. The only other one is the New Nude palette, but this is like a weird creamy one. It's just a really weird, different texture. But you can see the color is very similar. If I take She Rich, that's right here. And then here's Nirvana from Pretty Grunge. Like, that looks very close. And then I just wanted to compare it to some of the other palettes. Confident. Worthy is like that jelly one, so I don't know. Here's Confident, and then here's Worthy. Like, Worthy's a lot closer, but it's just this weird jelly texture. And we have the Naughty palette. Here's my Spicy looks cooler tone, and yeah, that's different. So I would say Pretty Grunge is the one. The second row, the first shade is pretty unique. Second shade I was able to find a match. Third shade is pretty unique. Fourth shade I found a match, and fifth shade is pretty unique. So 2 matches found from the second row. So far, first row I feel like is a pretty much of a duplication of what we have already, except for the silver gray. And then the second row, one of the unique ones was also the silver gray one. But then we also have this unique white and this cream shade. So 5 from the first row, 2 from the second row. Did I skip one? Oh my God. I think I skipped this shade right here. Did I? I think I did. Oops. Ooh, that's pretty. Pretty. I don't even know how to describe it. It has a little bit of purple, a little bit of champagne. That's just a really pretty color. Let's see the Pretty Grunge Rebel shade here. Rebel's a little bit more lighter. Similar, but still different. Strong AF. And Haphazard is very purple. So those are very different. Nothing else. Like, I don't see anything similar in any of the other palettes. Nothing in the Naughty palette. Like, Naughty palette is a lot darker. So yeah, I think the one from Pretty Grunge is as close as we could get. So, but it's still not the same. The new shade does have a lot more pinky purple, like something interesting in there compared to the one from Pretty Grunge, which I feel like is a lot more like champagne golden type of color, but similar. Okay, taking this pink shade from the last row. I just want to put it here first on my hand to try to find similar ones. Nothing is that light in the Mercury Retrograde palette. Naughty palette has a pink one here. Oh my god, I totally forgot about Rose Quartz. Yeah, this one is darker. The Nude palette, I mean, I don't see any pink. This is purple. And I don't see any pink in Pretty Grunge either. Let's take this pink here. Okay, yeah, that's definitely is similar, but a little bit more pinkier than the one from the Icy palette. What is it called? Like, now I need to do a comparison of this shade called Precious with the one called Poised. Yeah. Yep. So then that shade is not actually unique. So this palette is not looking that unique other than the silver gray, the white, and the cream, which is kind of sad. I mean, I guess the pink one is unique. I couldn't find anything similar to pink. And then the silver is gonna be unique because there's really no silver gray shades in Huda's palettes. So let's just swatch these. Here's my pink one. Oh, this is a very crumbly shimmer. Here's pink. Oh, that feels like sand. I don't even know what you would do with the shade. That's total sand. That's not a nice shade. And then you have One Self. Okay, that's really pretty. Have this Diamond Dew. Okay, very pretty and silvery. Got Lavish and First Class. I'm just gonna put it a little bit farther. Lavish. I mean, from Pretty Grunge, maybe this shade Freedom. It's a bit darker and pinker, actually. I don't see much gray in in this nude palette here. The Empowered one does have some grays, but they're a lot darker. So, like, this one's pretty dark compared to that. This shade is pretty unique. And then I don't see silver anywhere. Let's just put the Pretty Grunge ones next to it. Maverick. Oh, that's similar, but I feel like the new one is a lot more gray, but I mean, on the eyes, it might be hard to tell them apart. And then Rebel, it's tough. Radiate, I feel like it's not pink enough. Gratitude, maybe. Gratitude looks similar, just darker. Maybe Secret from the Nude palette. Yeah, Secret looks a lot similar. Nothing much from Naughty palette. This is just a brighter pink. Did I swatch Brave already? I'm actually gonna Watch that first one, the last one again. It's a pretty peachy shade. It's not that pigmented. Here's a pretty grunge. Here's a Liberty shade here, which looks a little peachy. Much darker. And the Empowered palette has a lot of peachy shades. That's different actually. Best Self. Ooh. I guess the one in the new palette is peachy pink. It's not that orangey peach. Interesting. In the Naughty palette. Retrograde. We have this one. This one. Yeah, I guess Utopia from Mercury Retrograde is similar, but it's just a lot darker. This shade called Play. That seems kind of light. It's just such a light shade. Because either the shades in the existing palettes are too orangey or they're too pinky. And this looks like a nice neutral kind of peach. Pink is also a little bit more of a neutral sort of pink. I mean, so from the last row, the pink one, which looks white in this viewfinder because it is a very, very light pink. That's unique. The silver sandy shade is unique. And then the next one, pretty unique, I would say too. And then the fourth one, I feel like I found similar in the Pretty Grunge palette, but not that similar. The pinky neutral ones here, I feel like I found something similar, but couldn't find anything for the peach. So in the last row, I would say I only really found like one shade that's pre-existing. Maximum two. Well, I would say only like this silvery shade and this neutral pink kind of shade where there are similar shades to that. But the rest were pretty unique. So final look at this palette, I would say the first row, you'll find a lot of similarities from other palettes. The only unique one was that silver gray shade. Second row, I did find a bunch of similarities. The only unique shades in here are the white one and the cream one. And then the last row was pretty quite unique. Couldn't really find anything for the pink or this sort of sandy silvery shade. And these shades in the end are a little bit more neutral, but I did find a neutral leaning pink. So I think I found two from the last one. So two from here, maybe four from the second row, and then five from the top row. So that's 10 shades. No, 5 plus 4 plus 2. That's 11 shades. And the entire palette is 18 shades. I mean, I don't know. I feel like you really already have most of these shades. I mean, the only unique shades in here is like the silver one and maybe this pink one. And do you really need a whole new palette for this couple of unique shades? I'm not sure. You know, it's possible that the color story might work out really beautifully together and give you versatile looks, which might maybe make this palette a good versatile palette to have, so that when you're traveling, you can just get this one instead of having to pick up a bunch of your Huda Beauty palettes. So ultimately, even though you have these shades already, it might still be worth it because the palette gives you a good variety of shades. You have this interesting iced out pretty pinky purple shade. You have silver in here. You have more like champagne type of shades. So like you have more powerful shimmers. You have more like subtle romantic shimmers. You have this weird grainy silver glitter. And then you have interesting mattes. You have some really nice neutral pink and peachy mattes. You have some darker, warm, and cooler tone mattes. You have some taupey shades. So an interesting variety of colors in this one palette, but you do already have most of the shades. So I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope this was a good comparison. If you found this to be helpful, make sure you hit that like button. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification. I will continue playing around with this palette and keep you guys updated. Bye.